The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched so wide that its far walls disappeared into a haze of distance. Thousands of alien beings filled the chamber, representing species from every corner of known space. Some floated in bubbles of methane gas. Others stood on platforms adjusted for their gravity needs. A few existed only as energy patterns, their consciousness held in shimmering fields of light. Commander Sarah Chen stood alone at the center of it all. She was a small figure in her dark blue uniform, surrounded by beings that had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans ever discovered fire. The weight of their stares pressed down on her like a physical thing. She kept her face calm and her hands steady at her sides. Above her, High Arbiter Velmora loomed on the central platform. The Valkara leader was a being of living crystal, 9 feet tall with a body that caught and bent the light into rainbow patterns. When Velmora spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once, deep and resonant like bells made of stone. "Humanity stands accused," Velmora announced. The translation devices built into the hall carried the words to every species in their own language. "In the 50 years since joining our council, your kind has expanded too fast. You have claimed 17 colony worlds. You have built military stations and neutral zones. You have refused to limit your breeding populations. Your ambition threatens the careful balance we have maintained for 10,000 years." Sarah said nothing. She had been warned this was coming. For months, the older species had been meeting in secret, discussing the human problem. Humanity's rapid growth scared them. In just 5 decades, humans had gone from barely leaving their own solar system to having a presence in dozens of star systems. While other species took centuries to establish a single colony, humans built 3 or 4 at a time. A delegate from the Thrix Collective rose to speak. The insectoid being clicked its mandibles, and the translation came through sharp and angry. "Humans are reckless. They terraform planets without proper surveys. They breed without restriction. They arm their ships with weapons that violate 12 different treaties. They must be stopped before they consume everything." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Sarah noticed how many species nodded or made their equivalent gestures of approval. The old powers had made up their minds before this meeting ever started. "We propose protective custody," said Ambassador Rex of the Gorlan Empire. The bear-like alien was covered in blue fur that sparked with bioelectricity. "All human colony worlds will be placed under council supervision. Human military forces will be reduced to system defense only. Human expansion will be frozen for a period of no less than 5 centuries, while your species learns proper galactic citizenship." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Protective custody was just a polite word for conquest. They wanted to cage humanity, to keep humans from threatening the old order where ancient species made all the decisions, and newcomers stayed quiet and grateful for whatever scraps they were given. "The alternative," Velmora said, and now the voice carried clear threat, "is military action. We do not wish for conflict, Commander Chen. But the Council has mobilized a combined fleet of 12,000 warships. They are currently positioned at the edge of human space. If humanity does not accept our terms within 48 hours, those ships will advance and take by force what you refuse to give peacefully." 12,000 ships. Sarah knew humanity's entire military could field maybe 200 ships that could match Council technology. The humans had other vessels, hundreds of them, but they were system defense craft not made for the kind of war the Council could bring. On paper, this wasn't even a fair fight. It was extermination. The chamber went silent. Every being present waited for humanity's response. Some looked eager, anticipating a young species learning its place. Others looked sad, as if they regretted what was about to happen but saw no other choice. Sarah took a slow breath. She had orders from Earth, from the human government that had prepared for this possibility. For 20 years, humanity had known this moment might come. Now it was here. "I have heard your accusations," Sarah said, her voice steady and clear. The translation systems carried her words to thousands of alien minds. "I have heard your threats. Before I respond formally, I need to know something. Is this truly the choice you offer? Submission or destruction? There is no third path?" Velmora's crystalline body seemed to harden, light refracting sharply. "There is no third path. Humanity will accept guidance from its elders, or learn a harsh lesson about defying those who have maintained galactic peace for millennia." Sarah nodded slowly. She reached into her uniform jacket and pulled out a small device no bigger than her palm. She held it up where everyone could see. Several species tensed. weapon systems coming online in case this was some kind of attack. But Sarah just pressed her thumb to the device's surface. "Then I am authorized to inform the Galactic Council that humanity rejects both options," she said. "Instead, we invoke Protocol Genesis." Confused silence filled the chamber. Species looked at each other, checking databases, searching for any reference to this protocol. Nothing came up. No treaty bore that name. No human document they had ever seen mentioned it. "What trickery is this?" demanded a delegate from the Azurn Commonwealth. "There is no Protocol Genesis in any galactic charter." "No," Sarah agreed. "There isn't. But there is in ours." Velmora leaned forward, light scattering dangerously from the crystalline body. "Explain yourself, human. What game are you playing?" "No game, High Arbiter," Sarah said. "Just a truth we have kept hidden until it became absolutely necessary. You have 48 hours to reconsider your ultimatum and withdraw your fleets from human space. I strongly suggest you use that time to think carefully about what you think you know about humanity." "You threaten us?" Rex stood to his full height, electricity crackling across his fur. "With what? Your few hundred ships against our thousands? This is madness." Sarah smiled then, and it was not a warm expression. "I threaten no one. I simply inform you that you have made assumptions about humanity based on incomplete information. You believe us to be a young species stumbling into space for the first time. You believe we borrowed or stole whatever technology we possess. You believe you understand what you face." She held up the device again. A small light on its surface had turned from red to green. Somewhere far away, systems were waking up after a sleep of millions of years. "You are wrong on every count," Sarah continued. "Protocol Genesis is now active. In 48 hours you will understand why humanity has been so careful, so quiet, so patient while we watched and learned about each of you. We needed to be sure. Now we are. Sure of what?" Velmora demanded. "That you are not what destroyed us last time," Sarah said simply. "That you are not the enemy our ancestors fought. That you deserve to know the truth before we reveal what we have been hiding." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. No one tried to stop her. They were too confused, too shocked by the confidence in her voice. "Commander Chen," Velmora called out. "What have you been hiding?" Sarah paused at the doorway and looked back at the assembled might of galactic civilization. "Everything," she said. "The Council has 48 hours. Use them wisely." Then she was gone, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Within minutes, the Council fleet received orders to advance slowly toward human space, ready for whatever trick the humans were planning. They expected desperation. They expected bluffing. They expected nothing that could truly threaten them. They would soon learn how wrong they were. 20 years earlier, the mining ship Fortune's Edge drifted through the outer reaches of the Oort cloud, far beyond where any planets orbited the sun. Captain Marcus Webb watched the scanner screens with tired eyes. His crew had been out here for 6 months, mapping ice formations and looking for mineral deposits that might be worth commercial extraction. It was boring work, but it paid well. "Got something weird here." "Captain," called out his sensor officer, a young woman named Rita Voss. She frowned at her screen, tapping it like the readings might change if she hit it hard enough. "Big contact. Really big. But it's cold. Temperature matches the surrounding ice." Marcus pushed himself over to her station in the low gravity. "How big?" 3 kilometers long. Maybe more. The ice is interfering with the scan." Rita looked up at him, confused. Could be a captured asteroid, I guess. But the density is all wrong. Too regular. Something about the reading made Marcus's stomach tighten. He had spent 30 years in deep space and learned to trust his instincts. "Change course. Take us in for a closer look." The Fortune's Edge adjusted its trajectory, closing in on the contact. As they got closer, the object resolved on their visual scans. What they saw made no sense at all. It looked like a ship. Not an asteroid, not a natural formation, but a constructed vessel buried in millions of years of accumulated ice and rock. The parts they could see showed straight lines, deliberate angles, the clear marks of intelligent design. But the ice coating suggested the thing had been here for an impossible amount of time. "That's not possible," Rita whispered. "Nothing's been out here that long. The solar system isn't even that old." But Marcus was looking at something else on the sensors. "There's more. Look." He highlighted several other contacts in the area, all roughly the same size, all showing the same impossible characteristics. This isn't one ship. It's a fleet. They spent the next week carefully excavating one of the vessels using laser cutters to melt away the ice. What they found underneath made them call Earth immediately, bypassing normal corporate channels to go straight to the military. The ship was human, not alien. Not some unknown species. Human. They found symbols etched into the hull, and while the language was so ancient that no database could translate it, the genetic markers were unmistakable. The technology, the design philosophy, even the dimensions of doorways and control surfaces, all matched human proportions and thinking. Dr. Sarah Kamathi arrived 3 weeks later with a team of archaeologists, linguists, and military analysts. She stood in the cargo bay of the research vessel they had brought, staring at a fragment of hull plating that her team had carefully removed from the ancient ship. "The carbon dating is confirmed," she said, reading from her tablet. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "This structure is 4.2 million years old, give or take 100,000 years. "That's impossible," said General Hammond, the military representative. "Humans didn't exist 4 million years ago. We were barely separated from other apes. We were still in trees, not building starships." "I know what the science says," Sarah replied. "I also know what the evidence shows. This was built by humans, or by something so close to human that every test we can run says it's us. The genetic material we found in preserved biological samples, the degraded DNA, it matches human DNA within a margin of error of less than 1%. She pulled up images on the wall screen. They showed more finds from inside the vessel. Control surfaces with labels in an unknown script. Chairs sized for human bodies. Even what looked like living quarters with beds, storage spaces, and what might have been a kitchen area. "They were like us," Rita said softly. She had joined the research team, too fascinated by the discovery to leave. "They ate, they slept, they lived just like we do." Over the next year, more teams arrived. They excavated 17 vessels in total, each one massive beyond anything humanity currently built. Slowly, carefully, they began to crack the language. It shared roots with human languages, distant and ancient but recognizable once they had enough samples. The ship's data cores were still intact, protected by some kind of quantum storage system that had kept them safe for millions of years. What they read in those files changed everything. Humanity thought they knew about themselves. The builders called themselves the progenitors, and they had been human, not an ancestor species, not a parallel evolution, but actual humans identical to the people walking around on Earth today. They had built an empire that stretched across the galaxy. They had mastered technology that bent the rules of physics itself. They had lived, thrived, and grown for 200,000 years, and then something had destroyed them. The records called it the unmaking, some kind of dimensional threat that fed on advanced civilizations. The progenitors had fought a war that nearly tore reality apart. They had won barely, but their civilization was shattered beyond repair. Trillions died. Entire star systems were erased from existence. The survivors did something radical. They couldn't maintain their civilization with so few left alive, and they feared that if they tried to rebuild to the same level, they might attract the unmaking again. So they decided to start over. Using genetic engineering and temporal manipulation technology, they seeded primitive proto-humans on Earth. They encoded certain traits, certain tendencies toward innovation and survival into the genetic code. Then they built these ships, programmed them with caretaker AI systems, and put them into deep hibernation. The ships would sleep until humanity evolved again, naturally hidden among the normal species of the galaxy. They would sleep until humans rediscovered space travel. And they would sleep until humanity faced an existential threat. "It's insurance," Sarah explained to the emergency session of world leaders gathered in Geneva. "The progenitors made sure humanity would rise again, but they also made sure we would have protection if we needed it. These ships are our inheritance from a version of us that lived and died millions of years before we were born. Can we use them?" asked the Secretary General. "Can we even understand the technology?" "We're learning," Sarah said. "The AI systems are designed to teach us, to help us. But they're also very clear about their purpose. These ships exist to protect humanity from extinction-level threats. They're not tools of conquest. They're not weapons of war. They're guardians. Who decides what counts as an extinction-level threat? asked the Chinese premier. Sarah hesitated. We do. The ships respond to human command, but only if we're acting in genuine defense. The AI systems evaluate our intent. They won't wake up to help us conquer. They'll only wake up if we're truly in danger. For the next 20 years, humanity kept the discovery absolutely secret. They built research facilities in the deep ice of the Oort cloud, hidden from any possible observation. They reverse-engineered what technology they could, making great leaps in energy systems, material science, and quantum computing. But they couldn't truly operate the ancient warships, not yet. The technology was too advanced, built on principles humanity was only beginning to understand. They also began a careful program of expansion and observation. Humanity joined the Galactic Council, but always watched, always analyzed. They needed to know if the other species were threats. They needed to make sure the unmaking, or something like it, wasn't lurking among the stars. And now, with the Council's ultimatum, the time had come to reveal the truth. Deep in the Oort cloud, in facilities built into the ancient ice, technicians activated systems that had slept for millions of years. Quantum processors came online. Power cores that operated on zero-point energy began to hum with life. AI minds, older than human civilization but designed to serve humanity, woke from their long sleep. The ships were enormous, dwarfing anything humans or the Council species had built. Their hulls were black as void, constructed from materials that didn't fully exist in normal spacetime. Weapon systems that could unmake matter at the quantum level began their startup sequences. Shields that bent space itself around the ships flickered into existence. In 17 locations across the outer solar system, and in hidden facilities in a dozen other star systems, the ancient fleet began to wake. Humanity's inheritance, built by a version of humanity that had fallen to save the future, was ready to defend its children. Commander Sarah Chen, standing on the bridge of the human flagship, received the confirmation signals. Protocol Genesis was active. The warships that predated all known civilization were awake. Now the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. And nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Krovik of the Gorlan Empire watched the tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet, combined with forces from 17 other Council species, formed the largest military armada assembled in 3,000 years. 12,000 warships spread across a front 20 light hours wide, advancing steadily toward human space. The humans are deploying their forces, reported his tactical officer. We count 173 vessels taking defensive positions around their colony worlds. Krovik's fur rippled with what his species considered amusement. 173 against 12,000. Do they think courage alone will save them? Perhaps they believe we will not actually attack, suggested his second-in-command. That our ultimatum was merely for negotiation. Then they will learn otherwise, Krovik said. He opened a channel to the other fleet commanders. All ships, this is Admiral Krovik. We advance to the human border worlds. If they resist, we fire warning shots only. We are here to occupy, not to massacre. The Council wants human worlds intact, not turned to debris. The great fleet moved forward. Krovik had fought in 6 major conflicts during his career, and he knew what victory looked like before the first shot was fired. The humans were brave but foolish. Their technology was decent, borrowed and adapted from Council designs, but they had no answer to concentrated firepower from dozens of species working together. The human border world of New Seattle lay ahead, a thriving colony of 4 million people. Human ships formed a defensive sphere around it, a brave but meaningless gesture. Krovik prepared to order the standard overwhelming display that usually made defenders surrender without bloodshed. Then his sensor officer made a confused sound, somewhere between a growl and a whine. Sir, we're detecting spatial anomalies. Multiple contacts appearing across all fronts. I don't understand these readings. They're showing mass signatures that are impossible. Explain, Krovik demanded. Something is emerging from quantum fold space, but the mass readings say objects the size of moons are appearing. That can't be right. Nothing that large could use fold space technology. The energy requirements would be astronomical. The tactical display updated, and suddenly Krovik was seeing contacts appear across his entire fleet formation. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands of new contacts, each one registering as enormous, each one appearing from seemingly nowhere. Visual confirmation? Krovik asked, his voice tight. The main screen shifted to show external cameras. What Krovik saw made his blood run cold. Ships were appearing, massive beyond any scale he had ever encountered. Each vessel was at least 3 kilometers long, some even larger. Their hulls were absolutely black, not just dark but seemingly absorbing light itself. Strange symbols covered their surfaces, symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. Where did they come from? Someone whispered on the command channel. Count them, Krovik ordered. I need a full count. The tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Still counting, Admiral. So far, over 2,000 contacts. No, 3,000. Sir, they're still appearing. They're everywhere. Between our ships, around the human worlds, behind our formation. It's like they're surrounding us. Krovik checked the data himself, unable to believe what he was hearing. The human fleet of a few hundred ships now had backup that numbered in the thousands. Ships that were bigger, denser, and according to sensors, operating on principles that physics said shouldn't be possible. Energy readings are off the scale, reported the science officer. These vessels use power generation systems that make our reactors look like chemical fires. And their hulls, Admiral. My scans can't determine what they're made of. The material exists partially outside normal space-time. A message came through on all channels, human and council. Commander Sarah Chen's voice, calm and clear. Council fleet, you are now surrounded by humanity's true military capability. These are the warships we have kept hidden while we learned about you. While we determined if you were friends or threats. We ask you again, withdraw your forces and negotiate in good faith. There need be no violence today. This is impossible, someone said on the command network. Krovik thought it might have been Admiral Velkos of the Thrix Collective. Where were these ships built? How did you hide construction on this scale? Sarah's response was measured, each word carefully chosen. These ships were not built recently. They are our inheritance from those who came before. You asked what we were hiding. This is the answer. Humanity is not new to the stars. We are returning to them. Krovik opened a private channel to the other fleet commanders. Analysis. Can we fight these vessels? Unknown capabilities, responded Fleet Master Gorth of the Azuran Commonwealth. But there are 3,000 of them and 12,000 of us. Numbers still favor us. My sensors detect weapon systems charging, warned Admiral Velkos. Multiple vessels are bringing their primary weapons online. On the main screen, one of the massive black ships moved forward. It was alone, separating from the others, approaching the Council fleet without hurry. Krovik checked the designation the computers had assigned it. Unknown Contact 1. The human transponder signal identified it differently. Predecessor 1 Council fleet. Sarah Chen's voice came through again. That vessel is designated Predecessor 1. It is the command ship of our ancient fleet. I am about to authorize a demonstration of its capabilities. This is not an attack. This is a warning. I suggest you observe carefully. The massive ship came to a stop 300,000 kilometers from the nearest Council vessels. Something on its hull opened. A port or weapon system that glowed with a light that shouldn't exist, a color that wasn't quite in the visible spectrum. All ships, emergency shields, Krovik shouted. Brace for attack. The weapon fired. Not at the Council fleet, but past it, into empty space beyond. The beam that emerged was thin, no wider than a meter. But what it did to space itself made every physicist in the fleet question their understanding of reality. Space tore. Not the space that existed in their dimension, but space itself, the underlying fabric of the universe. The beam created a line of absolute nothing, a void where matter, energy, and even the quantum foam that filled vacuum simply ceased to exist. The tear was 50 kilometers long and lasted for 3 seconds before reality slowly, painfully flowed back to fill the gap. Every sensor in the Council fleet screamed alerts. Every AI system flagged the event as impossible. Every living being watching understood one thing. If that weapon had fired at the fleet instead of past it, thousands of ships would have been erased from existence. Silence filled the command channels. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. That is one weapon from one ship, Sarah Chen said quietly. We have 3,000 such ships. Each carries dozens of weapon systems, most of which operate on principles your science has not yet discovered. Our shields bend space-time itself, making us nearly impossible to hit. Our engines fold reality, letting us move faster than anything you possess. Our AI systems are older than your recorded history and smarter than your best computers. She paused, letting the implication sink in. But we do not want to use them. We do not want war. We spent 20 years hiding these capabilities while we learned about you, while we determined if the galaxy held friends or ancient enemies. We have concluded that you are not our enemies, but neither will we submit to threats. Krovik found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. If you possess such power, why hide it? Why pretend to be weak? Because power without wisdom leads to destruction, Sarah replied. Our ancestors learned that lesson. They possessed technology like this, and it made them arrogant. They grew careless. When a true threat emerged, they were unprepared because they thought themselves invincible. They nearly went extinct. We will not repeat their mistakes. You said these ships are your inheritance, said Admiral Velkos. From who? Humans have been in space for only a century. Where did these vessels come from? That is a long story, Sarah said. One I am prepared to tell, but only if you are prepared to listen. I propose we cease hostilities immediately. Withdraw your fleet to neutral space. Send representatives to meet with us. Let us explain what humanity truly is and what we offer the galaxy. Krovik looked at the tactical display, at the thousands of impossible ships, at the power readings that broke every scale, at the 3-second tear in reality that was still making his sensors glitch. He thought about the Council's ultimatum, about their threats and demands. Council fleet commanders, he said over the command channel, we need to vote. Do we engage or do we withdraw to negotiate? The vote was swift and unanimous. When facing power this overwhelming, when seeing weapons that could erase matter itself, pride seemed like a poor reason to start a war. Commander Chen, Krovik said formally, the Council fleet will withdraw to neutral space. We accept your offer of negotiation, but we demand answers. The galaxy has a right to know what humanity has been hiding. Agreed, Sarah said. He could hear relief in her voice. Thank you, Admiral. You have made the wise choice. The truth will shock you. The truth will change everything you think you know about galactic history. But the truth needs to be told. For all our sakes. The Council fleet began its withdrawal, moving slowly back from human space. The ancient warships did not fall. The meeting took place on the neutral station Harmony's Rest, a massive diplomatic facility that orbited a star roughly halfway between human and Council space. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber was even larger than the Council Hall, designed to accommodate the historic moment everyone knew was coming. Commander Sarah Chen stood before them all, with Dr. Sarah Kamathi beside her. Behind them, holographic displays waited to show the evidence they had gathered over 20 years of secret research. The weight of what they were about to reveal pressed down on Sarah's shoulders, but her voice remained steady. 20 years ago, she began, a human mining ship made a discovery in the outer reaches of our solar system. What they found changed everything we thought we knew about ourselves. I'm going to show you what we discovered, and then I will explain what it means. The displays lit up, showing images of the first excavation, the massive ships buried in ancient ice, the artifacts recovered from inside, the genetic samples that matched human DNA despite being millions of years old. Gasps and confused murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. High Arbiter Velamora leaned forward, light refracting sharply through crystalline features. You found ancient vessels in your system? Ships from some precursor species? Not precursor, Sarah said quietly. Predecessor. Those ships were built by humans. By people genetically identical to us who lived and died 4 million years ago. The chamber erupted in protest. Species shouted in dozens of languages, all saying variations of the same thing. Impossible, fraudulent, deceptive. Humans had evolved recently. Galactic surveys confirmed it. Earth showed signs of only recent industrial development. The timeline didn't work. I know how it sounds, Sarah said, raising her voice to be heard over the noise. I know it contradicts everything your science says about humanity. But the evidence doesn't lie. Dr. Kamathi has spent 2 decades analyzing every piece of data we recovered. Sarah, please explain what we found. Dr. Kamathi stepped forward, activating more displays. The genetic material we recovered from the ancient ships matches modern human DNA with 99.7% accuracy. The remaining 0.3% difference is entirely explained by genetic drift over 4 million years. The language, while ancient beyond anything in our historical records, shares fundamental root structures with modern human languages. The technology, while far more advanced than anything we currently possess, follows design philosophies that are distinctly human. She pulled up images of the ship's interiors, the vessel dimensions, the control interfaces, the living spaces, all designed for beings with human proportions. The preserved records we found in their data cores tell a story that explains everything. The displays shifted, showing translations of the ancient records. Text in an archaic script appeared alongside modern translations. Sarah Chen continued the explanation. The beings who built these ships called themselves the progenitors. They were human as any person on Earth today. 4 million years ago, they had built a civilization that spanned the galaxy. They had mastered technology that bent physics itself to their will. They lived not for centuries, but for thousands of years thanks to medical technology we are only beginning to understand. And then something destroyed them, Dr. Kimathi said. They called it the unmaking. Their records describe it as a dimensional threat, entities that existed partially outside normal reality, that fed on advanced civilizations. The progenitors fought a war against the unmaking that nearly destroyed the galaxy. Images appeared showing what looked like tears in space, similar to what Predecessor 1 had demonstrated to the Council fleet, but far larger, far more destructive. Entire star systems reduced to void, planets erased from existence, billions of lives extinguished in moments. The progenitors won, Sarah continued, but the cost was devastating. Their civilization collapsed. Trillions died. Their empire, built over 200,000 years, fell in less than a century of warfare. The survivors faced a choice: try to rebuild what they had lost, or try something different. The displays showed genetic engineering facilities, temporal manipulation devices, and records of a plan so ambitious it seemed insane. They chose to start over, Sarah explained. The progenitors believed their advanced technology had attracted the unmaking, had made them visible to threats that hunted civilizations at their peak. So they decided to fall on purpose, to reset their species, to give humanity a chance to rise again, but more carefully this time. They seeded Earth with genetically modified proto-humans, Dr. Kimathi said. They encoded certain traits into our DNA, tendencies toward innovation, adaptation, survival. Then they built these warships, programmed them with AI systems designed to protect humanity's future, and put everything into hibernation. The plan was elegant, Sarah said. Let humanity evolve naturally, without the technology that made the progenitors visible to cosmic threats. Let us rediscover space travel slowly, carefully, hidden among other species. The ancient ships would sleep until we needed them, until humanity faced an existential threat. They would wake up to protect us, to give us the tools our ancestors used to survive impossible odds. High Arbiter Velmora's voice cut through the stunned silence. You expect us to believe that humanity fell and rose again? That you somehow existed before any current galactic species? That these ships are millions of years old? We don't expect belief without proof, Sarah replied. She gestured to Dr. Kimathi, who activated a new set of displays. We have brought samples for independent analysis. Genetic material from the ancient ships, fragments of their data cores, material samples from their hulls. We invite every species here to examine them with your own scientists, your own equipment, your own methods. The evidence will speak for itself. Ambassador Rex of the Gorlan Empire stood, electricity crackling through his blue fur. Even if this story is true, and I emphasize if it does not change our concerns, you possess weapons that can tear reality itself. You have hidden a fleet that dwarfs anything the Council has ever assembled. How can we trust you with such power? Sarah had been waiting for this question. We hid this power because we needed to be certain about you. All of you. The progenitors' records warn about the unmaking, about entities that pretend to be normal species until they reveal their true nature. We spent 20 years observing the Council, learning about every species, analyzing your behavior, your wars, your peace treaties, your culture. She looked around at the assembled delegates. We concluded that you are not the unmaking. You are not cosmic predators hiding behind pleasant masks. You are simply species trying to survive and thrive just like us. Some of you are aggressive, some peaceful, some greedy, some generous. But you are normal, natural, real. You are potential allies, not ancient enemies. As for trust, Sarah continued, we offer a bargain. We will share the truth about our history, about the progenitors, about the technology they left behind. We will work with your scientists to verify everything we claim. In exchange, we ask for honest cooperation. No more threats. No more ultimatums. Let us work together as equals, not as subordinates to be controlled. A delegate from the Meridian Union, a species of flowing energy beings, spoke in tones like wind chimes. You speak of cosmic threats of the unmaking. Do you believe this threat still exists? Dr. Kamathi fielded this question. We don't know. The progenitor records suggest they defeated the unmaking 4 million years ago, but they were not certain they destroyed it completely. They put safeguards in place, built these guardianships because they feared the threat might return. Whether it still exists or not, we cannot say. But, Sarah added, if it does exist, we would rather face it with allies than alone. The progenitors fell because they grew arrogant and isolated. We will not make that mistake. Humanity alone, even with these ancient ships, might not be enough to face a cosmic-level threat. But humanity working with dozens of species sharing knowledge and technology, that might be enough. The chamber fell into discussion. Species consulted with their own delegations, analyzing the evidence, debating the implications. Hours passed. Sarah and Dr. Kamathi answered hundreds of questions, providing data, clarifying points, offering to share research. Finally, High Arbiter Velmora called for order. This council must vote on a response. Do we accept humanity's explanation and pursue cooperation, or do we view this as a threat that must be contained? The Thrix Collective delegate spoke first. Our scientists have done preliminary analysis of the samples provided. The genetic material does appear to be millions of years old and human in origin. This supports their claims. The Azurn Commonwealth representative added, we have examined the weapon demonstration. The technology used is far beyond anything in our databases. If humanity wanted to conquer, they could have done so already. The fact that they revealed this capability only when threatened suggests defensive intent. One by one, species voiced their positions. Some remained skeptical but willing to investigate further. Some were frightened by the implications. But none voted for continued hostility. The demonstration of power had been too overwhelming, and the offer of coup. 3 months after the confrontation, the galaxy looked very different. Joint research teams worked in the Oort cloud, carefully studying the ancient progenitor vessels under the watchful guidance of human scientists. Species that had threatened war now sent diplomats and scholars to learn about humanity's impossible history. The story of the progenitors spread across thousands of worlds, fascinating some and frightening others. But not everyone accepted the new reality. In the Velkara home system, deep within the crystal cities that had stood for 10,000 years, the High Council of Crystalline Elders met in secret. High Arbiter Velamora stood before them, light refracting anxiously through the crystalline body. The other elder, Krelnak, has been speaking. One of the ancient Velkara said. The being was twice Velmora's size, its crystal structure dark with age. He claims humanity's rise threatens our position. He believes we should act before they grow stronger. Krelnak is wrong, Velmora said firmly. Humanity has proven they seek cooperation, not domination. Attacking them would be suicide. Did you not see what their ancient ships can do? We saw a demonstration meant to frighten us, the elder replied. But demonstrations can be faked. Perhaps humans have only a few such weapons. Perhaps they bluff with these stories of ancient heritage. Krelnak believes we should test their strength quickly, before they have time to prepare. Before Velmora could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the crystal cities. The Velkara military, without authorization from the High Arbiter or the Council, had launched an attack on human space. Krelnak had acted on his own, taking control of 6 battle fleets and sending them toward the human colony of New Harmony. Madness, Velmora whispered, rushing toward the communication center. This is madness. He will doom us all. Far away in orbit around New Harmony, the attack arrived with little warning. 6 Velkara fleets, nearly 2,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and immediately opened fire on the human defensive platforms. The attack was sudden, vicious, and determined. On Earth, in the command center beneath Geneva, alarms screamed as the assault registered on long-range sensors. Commander Sarah Chen was pulled from sleep and arrived at her station within minutes, her mind racing through possibilities. Status, she demanded. Velkara attack on New Harmony, reported the tactical officer. 6 fleets, approximately 2,000 vessels. They've destroyed our outer defensive platforms and are advancing on the colony itself. 4 million civilians on that world, Commander. Sarah's jaw tightened. They had tried peace. They had revealed the truth. They had offered cooperation, and still someone chose violence. Are the progenitor ships active? Predecessor 1 is already moving, the officer confirmed. It detected the attack and is en route to New Harmony. Estimated arrival in 4 minutes. Just one ship? Sarah asked. The AI system designated it as sufficient for the threat level. Predecessor 1 is asking for confirmation to engage with non-lethal force if possible. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define how the galaxy saw humanity going forward. Too gentle and others would test them. Too violent, and they would become the threat they claimed not to be. Confirmed. Non-lethal containment. Show them our power. But do not massacre them unless you have absolutely no choice. At New Harmony, the Velkara fleet pressed their attack. Admiral Krelnak himself commanded the assault from his flagship, convinced that humanity's ancient fleet was a myth or at least greatly exaggerated. He believed that a quick, decisive strike would shatter the human bluff and restore Velkara dominance. Then space rippled, and Predecessor 1 arrived. The massive black vessel appeared between the Velkara fleet and New Harmony, its 3-kilometer bulk seeming to absorb all light around it. It made no broadcast, issued no warnings. It simply acted. Systems activated across the ancient warship, technology that worked on principles the Velkara had never encountered. The ship didn't fire weapons. Instead, it projected a field invisible to the eye but devastating in effect. Time itself began to slow around the attacking vessels. Krelnak watched in horror as his ships began to freeze in space. Not physically, but temporally. The vessels hung suspended, their weapons fire dying mid-shot, their crews frozen in moments that stretched toward eternity. The effect spread across his entire fleet in seconds, touching 2,000 ships and locking them into temporal stasis. The flagship shuddered as the field reached it. Krelnak tried to order evasive maneuvers, but his crew moved slower and slower, their actions taking minutes instead of seconds. He watched the chronometer on his display, seeing time dilate, seeing seconds stretch into hours from his perspective, while the universe outside moved at normal speed. Then everything stopped. The flagship hung dead in space, frozen alongside every other vessel in the attack fleet. 2,000 Velkara warships trapped in temporal bubbles, their crews alive but locked outside normal time flow. Predecessor 1 sent a transmission to both the human colony and to Council space. The voice that spoke was artificial, but carried weight and authority that came from millions of years of purpose. This is Predecessor 1, Guardian Fleet Primary, the AI announced. An attack has been made on humanity. The attackers have been contained without loss of life. All vessels in temporal stasis will be released once appropriate authorities arrive to take custody. This is humanity's response to aggression. We defend, we contain, but we do not destroy unnecessarily. Let all witnesses carry this message to the galaxy. On Earth, Sarah Chen watched the display showing 2,000 frozen warships hanging in space around Predecessor 1. The ancient vessel had stopped an entire invasion fleet without firing a single destructive shot. The demonstration of power was even more impressive than the earlier warning. My God, someone whispered in the command center. They're not hurt? Sensors show all life signs normal, the tactical officer confirmed. The ships are intact. The crews are healthy. They're just stopped, frozen in time. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The progenitor AI had chosen perfectly. Show overwhelming power but also restraint. Prove that humanity could defend itself absolutely, while also showing they had no desire for slaughter. It was a message the galaxy needed to see. Within hours, representatives from the Council arrived at New Harmony, led by High Arbiter Velmora personally. The Velkara leader's crystalline body seemed dim with shame as the diplomatic vessel approached the frozen fleet. Commander Chen, Velmora said over the communication channel, I offer my species' deepest apologies. Krelnak acted without authority, without sanction. He will be removed from all positions of power and punished according to our laws. Please release our people. We beg for mercy. Sarah had been authorized to speak for humanity in this moment. She chose her words carefully, knowing the galaxy was watching. High Arbiter, humanity does not desire vengeance. We understand that every species has elements that resist change, that fear what they don't understand. Krelnak made a mistake, but his people should not suffer eternally for it. She signaled to Predecessor 1. Release them. Let them return home. Let them carry the message that humanity defends but does not seek to punish. The ancient warship complied. The temporal fields collapsed and suddenly 2,000 Velkara ships surged back into normal time. On the flagships and throughout the fleet, crews gasped as they realized what had happened. Minutes had passed for them while hours had passed for the universe. They had been held helpless, completely at humanity's mercy, and humanity had shown mercy. "Thank you," Velmora said quietly. This is not how powerful species typically behave. Most would have destroyed the fleet, made an example. "We are not most species," Sarah replied. "We learned from our ancestors' mistakes. The progenitors grew arrogant with power and it nearly destroyed them. We will not repeat their errors. Power exists to protect, not to dominate." The Velkara fleet withdrew, escorted by council vessels. Krelnak was arrested upon return to his home system and would face trial for unauthorized military action. The incident, rather than sparking conflict, became a teaching moment for the galaxy. Humanity had proven 3 things in one action. They could defend themselves absolutely, they possessed restraint equal to their power, and they meant what they said about cooperation over conquest. In the weeks that followed, more species reached out to humanity with offers of genuine partnership. Trade agreements were signed. Joint research projects expanded. Cultural exchanges began. The galaxy, after the initial shock and fear, began to accept humanity not as newcomers but as the ancient civilization they truly were. 6 months after the confrontation, Commander Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of a human station in the Oort cloud. Before her, through reinforced windows, she could see the ancient progenitor ships. Most had returned to hibernation, their purpose fulfilled for now. Only Predecessor 1 remained active, hanging in space like a patient guardian. Dr. Kamathi joined her, carrying a tablet with new translations from the progenitor data cores. "There's something you need to see," she said quietly. "Something the AI has been waiting to tell us until it judged we were ready." Sarah took the tablet and read. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. "Is this accurate?"